Salve, people of the universe, my name is Lord Salvatore and I'm a vegan. And I wanted to respond to this one woman that I've been seeing quite a lot lately, and she's actually been popular since like 2021. Well, popular is not really the right word. I would say almost infamous. She calls herself the vegan teacher. Now, I'm a teacher and I'm vegan, so I'm technically also the vegan teacher. Now let me teach you something today. Let me teach you why I think that she's wrong, and I can substantially bring out the evidence here. Let's start with the first problem. She says that animals are animals and that means that they are not food. Now, food is any nutritional source that you can extrapolate into your body and process. So when you're talking about something like food, it can basically be anything. Technically, if you have a can and you smash it and you eat it and you can digest it, that's food. In especially America, you have the FDA, which is the food something authority. I forgot the second word, but basically it's the authority that decides, hey, what actually counts as food. And they have numerous cases for like, what is a hot dog? What is bread? How much does something need? How much chocolate does something need to have chocolate? If you want to know more about those things, I recommend you watch the Food Theory channel by Matt Pat from Game Theory and Film Theory. He did a bunch of videos on those specific topics, which I actually think are really great topics to do. But I'm here to talk about the vegan teacher. Now, if she happens to be watching this, I want her to know I'm not trying to as a fellow vegan, I'm not trying to say that veganism is bad, but I do think that she's making a few wrong assumptions and has a few misleading facts. And I think we all have those sometimes, because we all, run into ideas that we think are right and then turn out to be wrong. That's just normal. But here's the first problem that I have with the on the FDA level, like the legal level almost. Food is registered legally and biologically as anything that is nutrition, at least. That's sold as nutrition. And meat is sold as nutrition. That's the first issue. So like, the terminology is very important. Now, if you want to say they shouldn't be food, that's a completely different insinuation. That's a completely different way of going about it. Now, I would say, okay, maybe animals shouldn't be food, but, and here's the little caveat, it can't happen in current modern day society, not globally. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. There's something called the Kuznets curve, and I think a lot of climate change people have heard of this as well, which basically says you need to be at a certain level of wealth to go green, because you need to develop your technologies, and you need to develop you need to create these incentives almost on a capitalistic basis. And that's not to say that, for example, socialist policies are not going to support these ideas. In fact, veganism is more popular among socialists. And I myself am a firm person who I dislike socialism, and especially communism. I have a severe hatred for communists. But that hatred has nothing to do with the little particular fact that they are eating meat, or not eating meat in that case. Because just because you are part of a demographic doesn't mean you're part of a group. There's a distinction between a demographic and a group. A group can be a certain array of people within a demographic. But a demographic itself doesn't mean that an entire group is a demographic. The same way that not everyone who riots for Black Lives Matter is going to be... same way that not everyone who takes part in the Black Lives Matter protest is going to be a rioter. Like, the rioters are one group, but they are part of that other demographic. And sure, certain groups are more common in certain demographics, but you have to look at all the data and see why these things are the case. Now, I'm not going to get into Black Lives Matter in this video. You can check out my other videos about that, because I've gone into those before quite a lot. And if you want me to elaborate more, you can always ask me in the comments and I'll make another separate video. Back to the point that I'm trying to say. So, that's very important to keep in mind, right? A difference between a group and a demographic. Now, when we look at the world, more people live in poverty. Well, less people live in abject poverty than they did like 50 years ago, but still there's poverty in the world, and especially after things like the corona crisis, where that took a hit on the market. You know, that's the one weakness of capitalism, so to speak, is when FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt take over in the market. It's a very economic term, FUD. It's used a lot. The stock market will crash. The prices, they crash. Now, historically speaking, when we look at the way that these things develop, the Kuznets curve is based on the economic idea of Kuznets' idea of the greener a society is, the more riches they need. Now, one of the arguments for veganism in this scenario, in this case, in this way of thinking, is the fact that a lot of the agriculture that we are currently producing goes to the animals. And that means that a lot of the land that we're using right now for agriculture is actually goes to the animals who we then consume, which seems highly inefficient. But what makes it more efficient in that sense is the amount of industry that we have. Now, could we compensate for that with vegetables? Yes, but can we do it instantly? Hell no! The climates aren't designed for that, because you need to have very specific grounds. You know, me personally, I live in the Netherlands, one of the most beautiful agricultural countries in the world. We claimed land from the ocean, but that took so many years to do. You can't just create land anywhere you want, fertile land specifically. In fact, they had to import grass to make the ground stronger again, and only then could the rest of a biosphere start forming on those areas of lands that we have reclaimed from the ocean. Because, interesting fact, a lot of the area around northern Europe, northwestern Europe, used to be actually land. Britain used to be connected to the mainland. Anyway, back to the original point. The point that I'm trying to make is, there are things we can do, but it takes time. It needs incentive. And, you know, I always get really confused with people who have the ego to say that animals don't have a soul but humans do. Because it's ridiculous, right? When you see anything that is alive, you come from the same family, biologically speaking. If you go back in time and look at historical connotation, and maybe you have a religion that says that it's not the case, but really, ask yourself this. Is not all life still sacred, according to your God? Is not all life still supposed to be appreciated? And you might say, well, if I eat it, I appreciate it. Do you though? Do you though? Do you really though? That's not really appreciation. That's the one thing I can get behind with the vegan teacher. But the one thing that I really can't get behind is the way that she wants to enforce everyone to do it now. It just doesn't make sense. But, you know, I think that it's time that we look at some of her videos, and then I can actually give a better criticism of those videos and the points that she makes in the moment. Because I could go on and blabbering here, and I'm probably seeing a few interesting things here and there, but let's actually deconstruct her argument. Alright, so the first one is her little short saying, God made animals for us to protect. Now, I'm not sure which God she's talking about in particular, but if she's talking about like the biblical Christian one, then that's not entirely accurate. But let's hear her argument first.
Responding to comments today, here's what you say. You say that God made animals to be eaten. So yeah. Okay, so what does that mean? If God made animals to be eaten and you're also an animal, then I guess if a wolf comes after you, you'll be like, okay, God made animals to eat other animals, so I give my body freely because that's what God would want. Is that what you're saying?
Okay, hold on. That doesn't really make any sense, I think. And I think that she's making one very common mistake that's often made by people who think They're making an argument. And that's the argument that because something is supposed to be one way doesn't mean that you have to accept it. There's a difference between the two. The same way that people used to eat meat, and you're not accepting that, are you? As the vegan teacher, you're not accepting that. So, just because something is a status quo, or something is supposed to be one way or another, doesn't mean you have to accept it. Now, some people may say you can't rebel against God, you're not supposed to do that. But that's the point of free will. If you read the Bible, you will actually understand that. And even in the Quran, and in the Torah, and everything you ever read in a religious text talks about free will, and about your own choices, and how they affect the outcome. So, don't follow something blindly, in that sense. You have to feel it. You have to feel how right something is. But if she really doesn't understand that, I don't know how to make it any more clearer than that. Because if you, let's say it like this, if a wolf does chase you, you become a prey, technically speaking, but technically it's not even a prey, because technically both people and wolves are known to be hunters, historically speaking, right? So, that's why we have canine teeth, that's why we have paintings of cavemen with spears in caves. It's because we hunted. So it's like more territorial thing almost, like this is my hunting ground, I'm the predator here. Now that's why wolves actually don't really attack humans. In fact, they smell humans, they usually stay away from humans. Unless they're really driven to it, they will attack, because humans are their natural enemy. I think you would know that if you were the vegan teacher, but apparently you didn't, which is sad.
You gotta be morally consistent.
What about logically consistent? Because you're saying on one hand, you should just accept it if it happens, but then at the same time you're saying that you shouldn't eat meat. So you're kind of doing the same thing that you're saying they're doing, in a way. So, no, and if you're just trying to make a sarcastic comment, it doesn't really make sense. It's falling apart. So, I'm gonna have to give this to Team Not Vegan for the sake of just this argumentation. Alright, this one says, you were born vegan, you just forgot, you can revert back and be kinder from now on. Okay. Again, we were not born vegan. In fact, technically, we were born as parasites, and we ate from our mothers. That's actually a fact. In fact, it's like this, if a woman eats a lot during pregnancy, because they're eating for two, of course, but there's actually points where the woman's fat gets converted into energy for the child. So you're technically cannibalizing your own mother when you're a parasite baby. So yeah, that's an interesting fact for you, in case you didn't know that. And if you don't believe me, you can look it up. I'm talking specifically to the vegan teacher, because I'm assuming other people who have made it up to this point believe me or already know this.
Hi, I'm responding to comments today. Here's what you say. You say that you don't want to be vegan because you ate chicken nuggets yesterday. So, what does that have to do with today? Every day is a chance for you to change who you're going to be in the future. This is the first day of the rest of your life. And let me remind you, you were born vegan. You never wanted to hurt animals. The first time you ever saw a chicken, it didn't occur to you to take a bite out of that beautiful living creature. You were probably fascinated with them. Maybe if you looked closely, you saw that they had some beautiful feathers and that they were different and interesting, sort of like dinosaurs are interesting. You can easily become vegan. You just have to decide that you want to be a good person and not a mean person, right?
Okay, being vegan doesn't automatically make you a good person, nor does it make you a bad person. The truth is that this entire dichotomy that people have, the juxtaposition, like you have to be somewhere in between good and bad, it's just ridiculous. There are all these different intentions, and people with different needs, and even creatures with different needs, which you would understand if you're really vegan, because that means you care about animals, which means you've studied animals, which means you understand that animals have different needs than people do. Some needs might, you know, cover both areas, but even if they interject, that doesn't mean that they have every single same need that we do. For example, we don't need to fly, birds do. We don't need to breathe oxygen through gills and therefore need to be in water, but fish do. Well, most fish at least. And also, like, sure, like today you can start being a better person. But I also think it's very important to understand that you can't just instantly change your entire diet. You can say, oh, but you can. Yeah, you can. But it wouldn't be healthy for a person to do so. And sacrificing one person for another person isn't worth it. So I think that, you know, give it the space. Give people the space to gradually, but actually convince them. Give them the incentive, right? Give them the incentive. You're not giving incentives. You're just making... you're going into the offense. And no one's ever listened to anyone who just goes to the offense. If I tell you you're a nasty prick for doing whatever, you're less likely to actually listen to me than if I were to be like, hey, you know, I think that maybe you could do this differently because, and then I would actually state some facts, and then I'd give you some time to think about it, and then you can make your decision based on that. And then I don't get angry at whatever decision you make, because that builds rapport. But she's now built this rapport on the internet where it's like no one's gonna trust a word she's gonna say anymore, because she's just so aggressive about it. And it's kind of sad, because I'm a firm, you know, believer that veganism can be a good thing for many people, but she's just not giving us a good name.
Yours is next. What would I do if a wolf mauls a little animal in front of me? Well, what would you do? Where's the wolf? Is the wolf going to eat me too? Can I help the little animal to get away? Is the animal your cat?
Okay. First of all, wolves do not tend to eat people unless they're actually starving or driven to it. Like, it just doesn't happen. Especially when you're as skinny as you are, or me even. Like, there's barely any meat on our bones, because we don't eat meat. So, yeah.
And you're screaming your head off and crying because the wolf is eating your cat? Or is it another wolf and they're having a fight? Or is the wolf eating a baby?
Another wolf? Well, they're saying a little animal. So, I think you need to be able to kind of see that they're not meaning another wolf. Also, the entire cat argument, like if it's your cat, that's just human egotisticalness. I think the fact that you're saying this is just hypocrisy. It's the hypocrisy that she has. It's almost like she feels like she's above everything, and she gets to decide when something is morally correct or not. But that's not the point. Morals are not something that one person gets to decide. Morals need to be based off of logic and truth, off of science. That's what you should base morals on. Well, some people base it on a religion, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, as long as it doesn't contradict science, and it doesn't contradict the world that we're living in. But that doesn't really happen that often with religion, but in her case, it contradicts with everything that's happening in reality. And that's really sad.
Baby wolf, like, I need more information. I need to know where I am. But essentially what I feel like is in nature there's not much we can do to intervene. But I think if you were screaming and it was an animal that you like, I think my instinct would take over to try to help the one that you love. But I also understand that the wolf needs to eat. So.
What about the poor people in the world who need to eat and don't have any other means? Are you gonna go to some tribe in Africa or the Amazon, or like, what's that one? Is she gonna go to North Sentinel Island where there's the last Neolithic tribe in still living there? Like, how far are you gonna take this? Because if you're trying to say you want to end the suffering, it's gonna happen in a different way. This entire idea that she has just, it's baffling. I don't know why she thinks that everything can just instantly change. Rome wasn't built in a day, right? It takes 20 days for an empire to be built and 1 for it to fall. It's a weird comparison, but it's kind of the way it is. But you gotta make the worth of the result of the empire equal to the work that you're doing for it. But all the work she's doing right now is just wasteful. She's wasting her breath trying to teach people about things that don't really work in the real world, in the real living world. Looking through her channel, it becomes blatantly obvious that she's using a lot of trigger words and also clickbait. Like, for example, let's say here, Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire, right? She's trying to start beef. Here, a bunch of words like LGBTQ, blah 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 blah, gun laws, wage gap. You see, it's like just a bunch of different, words. And then this here, just. I mean, do I really have to explain this one? 3 young women with barely any clothing. I don't think I have to explain that one to you. And really, vegan phobia. Why does everything have to be a phobia nowadays? I mean, why would anyone be afraid of a vegan? Most vegans don't really have much mass, so like, what are we gonna do? Like, unless you're like specifically bodybuilding as a vegan and you're adapting your diet specifically to that, you're not gonna be that strong. So like, alright, let's see, what is this?
Hey there. Oh, first of all, thanks for being here. And thanks for commenting. I'm not sure though whether your site is really that good, because
you're the one with glasses.
I used to not see clearly either until I had my eyes checked. So maybe you want to do that.
Wait, hold on.
Just get them checked.
You used to not see clear until you had your eyes checked, and then you saw clear, or do you mean after they gave you glasses? I hope that's what you mean, because otherwise it would be kind of weird.
I really like the comment though below yours where somebody says that actually apparently McDonald's has apple pies that are vegan. I never knew that. So that's kind of cool.
You might say that's kind of cool, but honestly McDonald's is low quality food, right? It's junk food and it's not healthy for you, and I don't recommend it. But, you know, it's not something that I think we should be campaigning against as fervently. I think it's more so the fact that we need to, like, I mean, they're already in a lot of, especially developed countries, again, Kuznets curve, they're actually offering more healthier alternatives to things in fast food chains. And I think that's a good thing. But I do believe that we need to do more to promote more healthy foods, but not necessarily become stricter on those foods, because well, people need to make their own choices in the end. And for some people, fats might be necessary. Some people might have conditions, or might be really athletic, and then certain fats can actually be really good for them to eat. You know, eating high-calorie foods, but just not that much of it, that would be a good thing in that sense. But I do recommend, though, getting some making some fries yourself and getting them into either an air fryer or olive oil. It's very tasty, actually. But that's beside the point. Sorry, my inner chef came out.
So I'm not sure how else to respond to your comment, except that did it ever occur to you that maybe, just maybe, you're vegan phobic and you just like to spread lies instead of trying harder to just not hurt the animals? You could try being vegan, you know?
I mean, yeah, it could be a lie. It could definitely be a lie. But I don't know. You know, it's kind of a thing where like I can't comment on whether or not it's true, because I just don't know. So I'm gonna shut up about that one. So she has a dog, and obviously she gives it a vegan diet, which is possible. Dogs can be vegan, in a healthy way. But it needs a lot of support. You need to make sure that they're constantly eating the right amount of things that they need for their age, and they need to get checkups regularly anyway, which you should do for any pet you have anyway, honestly. But I'm just wondering if she did hire professionals like veterinarians and not just people who she liked to say like, oh yeah, it's okay, but like, I hope she actually got people to help with that, because I know a lot of people who make their pets vegan. Like, certain pets can't be vegan at all. Like cats, they will die if you turn them vegan. They will literally die. Dogs, however, don't necessarily die, but you also gotta make sure that you're taking good care of their mental state at the same time, because it does affect your mental state. Like the same way that humans become less aggressive if they eat less meat, dogs can also become drowsy. So you gotta make sure that they don't have any underlying conditions either, and that you give them enough food and enough exercise at the same time. Yeah, so I just hope you looked at the professional with that. In conclusion, I just want to say that I don't feel there's any need for hostility between vegans or non-vegans, or like even people that advocate for eating meat. I think the most important thing is that we keep things civil in this conversation and don't make things more difficult than they already are. I mean, it's really a first world problem, veganism, or whether you should do it or not. It's really a first world problem. And I think that that's something we need to take away from this, how privileged some of us are that we get to even do it. You know, it's economics. Economics play a huge part, because some parts of the world just don't even have vegan food that can sustain substantially because of their economic misfortune. You know, and I think that we need to take away that. You know, a lot of us are privileged. I feel I'm privileged to have a roof above my head and food on the table and a bed to sleep in. Not everyone has those things. So yeah, I think whilst I am a fervent vegan, and I do believe that we should aim for veganism on a global scale, I don't think we can do it instantly. I think it's going to take probably over a century, maybe even a few centuries if it's really bad. But I think that we need to approach this the same way that someone would approach fixing a puzzle, not with aggression, but rather just logic. Now, vegan teacher, if you happen to respond to this video, I would like to see what you have to say about these things, and I hope that maybe you can calm down a little. I hope so. You know, I understand what it's like, right? I understand what it's like to see animals suffer and not like it. But really, the way you're going about it is not going to convince anyone. And I think that it's more detrimental to the cause that we're both striving for. So please, take a consideration. Well everyone, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, subscribe for more. Remember to check out our manifestos. Currently there's only one published, but there's going to be a second one soon, and I'm already working on the third one as well. It's all going to be collected into a volume, and eventually it's going to be available for hardcover sales. All hail to the rebel.